So I'm here at Mozcon, as you can see over here by the sign. It's actually in reverse. In any event, the next person I'm speaking with at Mozcon is Ruth Burr Reedy to talk about algorithms, machines versus humans, and what you should build content for, websites for. It should be an interesting talk. I'm looking forward to talking to her. Okay, so I have Ruth with me. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. It's great to be at Mozcon.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little about yourself? Who are you and what you do?
I'm Ruth Burr Reedy. I'm currently the Vice President of Strategy at UpBuild. We're a boutique digital marketing agency, so we focus on technical SEO and advanced web analytics implementation and whole funnel conversion rate optimization.
Awesome. And it looks like you got into SEO in 2006.
Yes.
How did you get into SEO?
Well, so I have a BA in theater. And about 6 months before I graduated from college, I realized I didn't actually want the life that goes with theater. I wanted something that was a little bit more stable. I wanted like health insurance and things like that you don't really get in the performing arts. So I didn't know what to do with my life. I got a temp job doing data entry, and they found out I could write. So they started having me write blog posts for them. And so at that point, the woman who was doing SEO for them was taught me about SEO for blogs, which in 2006 was very like keywords, like you could still like put your keywords in bold. It was a different time.
Right.
She eventually, the woman who was doing SEO there, wanted to leave, so she sat me down and taught me everything she knew in about 3 weeks. It was the most intense period of my life at that point, and I ended up doing SEO there in-house for about 4 years, and then since then I've been agency side, I've been in-house and independent consultant, just kind of moving around, but yeah, fell in love.
You went into SEO for the stability. How many times has SEO died in the past, I don't know, 10 years? Anyway.
You know, what I usually say is the internet's not going away, and neither is selling things, so I'm not really that concerned about it.
That is true.
Yeah.
And so now you're at UpBuild, but before, since we're at Mozcon, you were at Moz.
Yeah.
How was working at Moz? How was that?
Working at Moz was great. So I was at Moz for about 2 years. I was the head of SEO there. So I actually spearheaded, from an SEO perspective, the migration from SEOmoz.org to Moz.com, which is a really intense project. And some of the work I'm still proudest of in my career. We got back to the traffic levels we were at before the change in just a matter of months, and then started to grow. Everything went great. And I obviously didn't do that single-handedly. You know, we had a team at Moz, but that was great. I mean, the people were awesome. It was, you know, it's funny, at the time it was my dream job, right, to be the head of SEO at Moz. And it was great. It was a great place to work. And when I moved to Oklahoma, which is why I left Moz, I moved to Oklahoma, I really thought, oh, you know, I've lost my dream job. What am I going to do? But it turns out, like, you get older, your dreams evolve. Future exists.
Definitely. And what was your most interesting job over the years?
Honestly, I think the most interesting job is the job that I have now at UpBuild. So UpBuild is an agency founded by our founder, Mike Arneson. It's an agency built by people who hate SEO agencies. Okay. So UpBuild is specifically designed to combat against a lot of the problems that agencies encounter. Things like hiring people for really cheap and then working them to death, and then they churn out. Now your client has had 4 managers in 4 years and they don't know anybody. Not doing that, basing it on the hypothesis that if you have fewer clients per person, people can do better work, you can pay them more, they stay for longer. Now you're doing better work, which people will pay more for. You retain clients, you retain your employees, and you grow. And also, it's not a terrible place to work, which is nice. And so far, that hypothesis is really proving true, and we're profitable and successful, and everybody's really happy. So it's been great to be part of.
That's awesome. So other places you've worked at have been pretty terrible, or?
I mean, a lot of places I've worked at have been fine. I don't know that I've ever had a job that I would say was terrible. Maybe the time I worked at Blockbuster in college, that was not fun. But it especially at like the lower level. So like, I'm very fortunate that I spent the first 4 years of my career in-house, and in-house at a place where, like, frankly, nobody was paying attention in SEO. So I was able to learn SEO without a lot of scrutiny. And what I see happening with agencies a lot is you hire people right out of college because they're super cheap. You teach them SEO for a certain value, teaching them SEO, and then you just work them really hard and you don't pay them very much. And a lot of times with agencies, the lever that they have to pull for profitability is as many client hours per person as possible.
Right.
And that sucks. And then that person only works there for like 18 months. This is why average tenure in a job in our industry is so low.
So what's your advice for somebody new going into the industry, finding the perfect job and stuff like that?
I would say really ask about like what your day-to-day is going to be like. Ask about how many clients you're going to have. The thing about SEO is, in order to be successful, you have to stay abreast of changes in the industry, which is why you're such a valuable resource. And a lot of times you're doing that on your own time, and that, if you're working really hard, can be really hard to do. So like, one question I recommend people asking is, how much time do you expect people to spend while at work learning about changes in the industry? How do you defend that time? How do you support that learning? Or is this something I'm only going to be doing at 11 p.m., you know?
Awesome. And so your Mozcon talk was about humans and machines and what's more important, or how do you blend the two? Can you give me a little summary of that of like a minute or so?
Yeah. So in terms of like how to spend my time, what I like to think of is SEOs are humans creating things for humans, with a machine as the intermediary. If you optimize just to the algorithm, it's overreactive, you're constantly behind the 8 ball, you're probably focusing on the wrong stuff. But if you optimize only for humans, you're often leaving opportunity on the table. So the most successful SEO work is stuff that looks at human readable quality signals, but then also seeks to optimize their machine readable equivalents.
And what do you think about all those blog posts that I do around, Google updates and stuff? Is that a distraction? Is that helpful? Or it depends on the person who's reading it? So
what I said in my talk, and I can go in this a little bit more detail, I think information about algorithmic updates is useful at scale and within your niche. So if an update doesn't impact you or sites like yours, it's probably not, like, you don't care. But if it does, even if it's a very, very small update, if it impacts you, it's important to you. So one of the things I really suggest is, if somebody's been hit, first of all, look at, is it specific pages that you've lost rankings for? And if so, who's ranking now? What does that say about changes in your market? But if it is site-wide, that's where I really feel like that discussion and that overview, like with the June update, I really liked how you went through what people are saying and pulled out, like, here's concretely the losses people are seeing and the industries that they're in, and you sort of filtered out all of the general hand-wringing, and you were like, here's some numbers, here's some industries. That's useful. People can then say, okay, was this a penalty? Should I be concerned about this? Is this impacting my niche? Right. It's interesting because I spoke to Overstock. Overstock. And they've been through a lot of history. They got hit like a bunch of times with link penalties and this type of penalty. And I spoke to them and I said, your rankings are doing amazing. Their earnings were amazing. They said most of that was because of their SEO. And I said, what are you doing different? They're like, we're not chasing the algorithm anymore. We're just trying to do what's best for the user. And the algorithm is pretty much agreeing with what they're doing. And that's kind of like a thing like Google wants you to focus on, is stop chasing the algorithm. Of course, I think it's important, mostly for therapy reasons. Like, if you get hit, like, who else can I talk to? I mean, that's getting hit could really destroy your business, kill your morale, lead some people to depression and stuff like that. And you see it all the time in the forums. It's like people are devastated. So I think that's useful, and it's nice to see people going that way. So I think so too. And I think there's a difference between chasing the algorithm and trying to say, like, oh, like, based on this, title tags are now like X% more or less impactful. Like looking at like weighting of different ranking factors, that's a waste of time. But if something does impact you, it's good to understand what happened, both to try to fix things, but also because a lot of times that's reflective of changes in your market. So I think that doing stuff for the user is great. I think looking at what Google is doing with the algorithm is one way to gain new insights into what your users are doing online. I think it has to be both. And I love how Google has kind of, not intentionally, but kind of pushed people into looking at the Google Quality Raters guidelines, EAT and stuff like that. And then you see Googlers get upset that it's not just focusing on making your site authoritative and trustworthiness and stuff like that. People are saying, all right, you need a better business bureau listing. You need, this amount of stars. You need to make, and Google's like, no, don't focus on getting a BBB listing and stuff like that. Focus on just the overall making your site trustworthy. And it's always whenever, I find it interesting, whenever you see Googlers complain about how SEOs are approaching things, it's always when they're looking at too much of the detail. It's too granular. Yeah, they're looking at individual algorithmic inputs, which is why I'm starting to get really tired of the conversation about whether or not something is a ranking factor. Like, is it an algorithmic input? Maybe. Like, a lot of times it's like Google could look at this, whether they do or not depends on a lot of stuff. But yeah, that kind of like granular, and I see too Googlers getting irritated when people ask, is EAT a ranking factor? EAT is something humans communicate to humans about, like, overall quality signals. It's not one thing. This is something I talked about in my talk, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. That's like dozens or even hundreds of signals. So no, it's not a ranking factor. It's a
Right.
lot of stuff.
It's the overall theme.
Yeah.
It's the overall approach.
Do you know what you're talking about? How could someone tell?
Exactly. Awesome. Well, how can people learn more about you?
I'm on Twitter at Ruth Burr, or if you want to visit UpBuild.io, I blog there a lot. And UpBuild is, I don't know if we'll still be hiring by the time you publish this, but we're hiring right now.
Awesome. So hopefully you guys can fill out the application and get a job at an amazing place to work at.
It's an amazing place to work
Amazing. It's based in
We're fully remote.
remote. Awesome. That's
Yeah,
great.
so anywhere in the US.
Awesome. Very good. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.